Let's talk about free agents and some of those players that are still currently available. The catalyst for this chat, Ben, was seeing that Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain looked like he was off to Celtic, although there's a little bit of doubt around that. Where are we at with that deal at the moment?
Yeah, it's not done yet, but Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain and Celtic have been in advanced conversations. The expectation yesterday was a deal would get done, but there's obviously wage and package and free agents, even though they're looking for their next club, still have a little bit of leverage in terms of what they ask for. Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain has had options as well in both Turkey and Saudi Arabia, and Charlotte FC made a late call as well. So we'll have to wait and see whether it gets over the line, but certainly Celtic were pushing and they're hoping to finalise it as soon as they can in order to avoid surprises. But at the time we're live, it's not 100% done. There was optimism yesterday, but usually when a player is close as a free agent to signing for one club, it's not atypical that you can get a few little hurdles, whether in the conversations with Celtic or a late hijacked opportunity, because of course Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain is a really good market chance for somebody looking for a player at the last minute, knowing that the rest of the possibilities during that winter window are now unavailable until the summer.
I wonder how successful free agents have been, though, that have been signed. Does it ever really work?
Can you
get the sense that it doesn't actually really work, but that might be unfair.
Can you think any that have gone on and made a real impact, Ben?
Yeah, it's difficult, isn't it? But by the same token, it can be something that takes a club as a stopgap through until the end of the season. I mean, Cristiano Ronaldo terminated his contract with Manchester United, was a free agent, and moved to Al Nassr in Saudi Arabia. That has seemingly worked, although there's tension and politics at the moment. So there are opportunities when a free agent can maximise the fact that they're moving outside of a window or just take their time. Another example is N'Golo Kante terminated his contract with Al Ittihad. There were problems in trying to get that done as a paid transfer. Time was running out, the Saudi window shut. So Kante went into free agency and then was able to facilitate that move to Fenerbahce, which I think will suit all parties. Raheem Sterling is another example, somebody that was basically unable to move because of his high wage and his desire when he was a Chelsea player to stay in London. Then he agrees a payoff. He benefits financially. He can take his time and wait. And now he's actually prepared to move abroad. So he doesn't have a club at the moment, but suddenly the pool of suitors is a lot bigger. So it can be beneficial to go into free agency. But obviously, in some cases, they're free agents for a reason, because clubs don't want them because of their age, because of their wage. And that makes it harder to find a club, especially mid-season.
There's been a bit of talk about Dele Alli, and he had that little spell at Como, managed to get a red card after being on the pitch for about a minute. Never seemed to recover from that. Never happened for him there. You start to wonder what the future holds. I mean, one obvious thing that comes to mind, because whenever you speak to Carl Robinson, who's at Salford these days, Salford City, you know, he loves the kid and would love to see him come back to those. I mean, League Two might be a hell of a drop down. I don't know what his wage expectations were, but that feels like that could be a good fit from Dele from a personal point of view.
Yeah, I think for Dele Alli, he has to decide what he wants to do next. As you say, it didn't quite work out at Como. It looked like a good move at the time. That contract was terminated in September. The Salford City link is out there. So, by the way, is MK Dons for Dele Alli as well. And what we've heard from Dele Alli for pretty much 2 years is his love for football is back. And he now has an appetite to stay fit and play regularly, and he would certainly be able to do so at that level. So I'm under the impression that for Dele Alli, picking his next club is not about finances. He would work into a wage structure for the right project, but it's just about getting fit, playing regularly, ensuring that he stays in love with football, and maybe he could do that at the lower echelons of the English pyramid. There are some other clubs keen on taking him. Portland in MLS made an inquiry only a couple of weeks ago, and Levante were considering making a bid as well, but had some concerns over his fitness. But when you look at Levante and Como, certainly it shows you that his standard is deemed to maybe be, with respect, a little bit higher than League One or League Two. So it'll all depend on whether coming back to England is the right move for him personally, or he aspires to play at the highest standard, in which case you would think the likes of Salford and MK Dons would be off the table.
Yeah, of course, Carl worked with him at MK Dons back in the day. MLS would be a nice... I'd just love to see him play again. I'd like to see him playing and happy again.
Playing well, yeah. Exactly.
Let's have a quick one on Raheem Sterling. there were options for him on deadline day, but he was under no pressure because he is a free agent. Do you expect him to sit it out to the summer? He's somebody else who probably wants to be out there playing football, but only at the right club. He had offers, didn't he? Where were some of those that he decided not to go to before the window closed?
Yeah, Raheem Sterling didn't want to go to West Ham. They were the ones that made an inquiry for a loan that could have turned into an obligation if they stay up in the Premier League. And Sterling was clear that he wants permanent move only. And West Ham realised that the wage was also a factor as well in their thinking, which is why they wanted to start it as a loan. Sterling is prepared to make a wage concession. He's obviously not going to be asking for £325,000 a week from whoever his next club is. And he's been well compensated by Chelsea to terminate the contract. That suited all parties. And now Sterling's basically changed his perspective from Fulham, who inquired over the summer, and West Ham in January, and therefore staying in London, to actually now being open to playing abroad. So I think now Sterling is casting his net a little bit further and hoping to join a club that gets Champions League football. Napoli are one of the clubs that have inquired in the past. Leverkusen, Bayern Munich and Juventus, this was back in the summer, also made some calls to Chelsea as well. But of course, for anyone negotiating with Chelsea and looking at that wage as a Champions League club, it was a big outlay to pay some form of fee. And even if Sterling reduced his wage, basically pay him a Champions League wage. So now we'll have to see as a free agent how low Sterling is prepared to come down. And if that number drops significantly, I do think in Europe there'll be people with Champions League football that fancy taking a move for him. Whether that's mid-season remains to be seen. I think if Sterling has to sit out until the summer, he's prepared to do so because he's kind of got used to just waiting and not playing from his time in the bomb squad at Chelsea.
A few of the fans of clubs getting his. Mark the Villa fan, Tielemans and Kamara are effectively free agents released by their clubs. Kamara at Palace won the FA Cup, says one of the other listeners.
Great, yeah.
Again, free agent. So look, it can go well, can't it? Yeah.
Yeah, what I think also I'd say just briefly is that there is a big difference between becoming a free agent out of necessity and waiting for the right move versus with Yuri Tielemans, knowing you're a free agent for a long, long time, letting your contract run down as you did at Leicester, and then effectively using that free agency to pick your next club. It's essentially what Trent Alexander-Arnold tried before Real Madrid paid a fee to get him to the Club World Cup. And there's many examples. Look at Ibrahima Konate, for example. He might sign a new Liverpool deal, but if he doesn't, he heads into free agency. But I think there's a clear distinction between a player being marketable because they're heading into free agency. Mark Gahey could have fallen into that category versus somebody that almost becomes a free agent by default or necessity. And it's maybe harder for that latter category to find their next club.
No, good point. Cheers, Ben. We'll catch up with you soon.
Cheers.